Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Now we're taking a look here today at BitTorrent, which is a fan favorite for a lot of my community members. So thank you so much for recommending I cover this. Makes sense, of course, because it did increase pretty significantly here in the last 24 hours, as most altcoins did, but it's nice to know what's going to happen next. And that's why we're here. So moving forward, this is a technical analysis. There's no fundamentals here. Just bear in mind there are some really good fundamentals here for BTT, so check that out in your own time. It's a really good source, and I've actually utilized BitTorrent for a very long time. So it's always been a good friend, good family friend, if you want to say it that way. All right, well, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. You should do your own research and just know that I have years of trading experience, and my goal is to help you become more successful so you can trade for a lifetime, not just for one day, right? So, with all my community members, we all have a great time. We all love to learn together. So feel free to join my Telegram community. And if you'd like, some signals every week, of course, feel free to reference my Patreon account where I send out, a few signals per week to make sure that I share my trades with you. And currently we're trending at between 70, 80%. It just depends on the time of year. Honestly, this last few weeks have been kind of rough, but overall, I would say that things are very successful there. So feel free to check that out in your own time. But without further ado, I do tend to ramble. Apologize for that. Let's just go ahead and get right to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at BTT. So BitTorrent is an interesting coin. It skyrocketed to over 1 cent a while back. That's the last time I covered it. It's been a while, actually. So I'm excited to cover this here today again because I got a really good BTT crew that likes to watch and understand what's going on because it's looking very good and promising for BTT right now. But before we do, if you're new to the channel, we always look at Bitcoin, Ethereum first to get a baseline on the market so you know exactly what's going on so you can make an informed decision, right? You don't just jump into any trade based on random information. You want to look at specifics, and I'll tell you what those are here today. So looking at Bitcoin here. First thing to note is that we have a major support level at 30,000. Technically, you could say it's about 29,400 because it was tested also. And the price did break below 30,000, but it's still considered a support level just based on the fact that it only stayed down there for 24 hours, right? So just keep that in mind. Also to preface, I apologize, this is TradingView desktop application, and I utilize this. I recommend the paid version just because it gives you a lot more indicators, and it's actually money well spent if you are making money in the industry or you plan to do this full time. You want to follow along. Check these things out here. I'll kind of include and explain the indicators as we go along. But on the 4-hour chart, I always use the simple moving averages, the 200 and the 50. So the 200 is this purple line here, and the 50 is this orange line. All right. So price action is well above both, and they will be for some time unless it comes crashing back down. Now it's testing the support level of 37,000, but it did get rejected upwards of about 40,500. Okay, so keep in mind that's 40,500 is the next major resistance, and the current support that is being tested presently, and it has been tested a few times in the past as a resistance, is 37,000. And you'll note too, if you understand and you've been in the industry for a while, you'll start seeing common support and resistance levels at even numbers, because more often than not, the bots and the industry leaders, they're going to be setting their stop losses at those specific target points, which is why you see the price break above or below, because it's a point in which they get stopped out, and then there is sometimes a squeeze that happens, and it just kind of continues on from there. But right now at this point, we're looking at 37,000 is holding strong. All right, so that's kind of where we're at there for the moment with Bitcoin. Not much else to note except we had massive short squeeze yesterday. A lot of people got caught in this thing. It was somewhere almost upwards of like $900 million worth of short squeezes that were closed out yesterday. Like whoever was shorting, including myself, because it was hitting a resistance level on the 1-day chart at the 50-day simple moving average. A lot of people got stopped out. Thankfully, I didn't have a large position, but these things do happen. We didn't expect Bitcoin to continue this high, this fast, this quick, right? So, I mean, we're talking 4 days ago, the price was at 29,000 and it just tested 40,500 last night. Insane. But that's kind of the way Bitcoin is, unfortunately. And fortunately, volatility is guaranteed. So that's what we're here for, right? All right, so that is essentially what we're looking at. Oh, one last thing to note. You see this volume spike here. I mean, just crazy amount of volume. That was that massive short squeeze yesterday. All right, moving on to Ethereum. Now, Ethereum is essentially doing the same thing as Bitcoin right now. only worse. In other words, Bitcoin, the threshold for Bitcoin was right around here. If you were to kind of compare the charts, it was 36,500, and it blasted above and came back down. Ethereum still staying here, still struggling right around the $2,400 mark. So it passed, or correction, it passed it for a moment, but then came retracing back down. So if you can see, 2,400 is still a major resistance for Ethereum, right? It'll probably continue to be like that until the simple moving averages work their way up, or Bitcoin breaks 40,500. We're probably not going to see that tested until that happens. So just keep that in mind. Unfortunately, Ethereum used to be the go-to coin, as we can see back here. Strong increase in price when Bitcoin goes sideways, but that's not the case anymore. Seems like Ethereum is no longer the alternative to Bitcoin. You know, the Matics, the ADAs, and even BTTs are actually taking a lot of that volume from Ethereum. All right, so moving on to BTT for that matter. So BitTorrent, let's go ahead and take a look. We always look at the one-day chart and work our way down. So that's kind of the standard. And with the one-day chart, something to note, and this is pretty consistent with a lot of other altcoins right now, is a simple fact that the 50-day simple moving average is still working as a resistance. See, it broke through, but retraced back down and closed. Therefore, it did not break and it's still below. So this could continue to work as a resistance, and it might keep pushing the price down. We'll see how that happens, of course, but that is essentially what could occur. Now, bear in mind the MACD did swing upwards in a convergence where the 12 intersected upwards on the 26 here. And that was roughly on the 22nd. That was when Bitcoin jumped from 29,000 to 32, 33. And we saw some massive movements in the market. But generally speaking, minus that, RSI is in the center. Not much else to note, except that the 200-day simple moving average will work as a resistance potentially too. So, BTT is not out of the doghouse yet. Still has a lot of room for growth. But I would say this is a very significant improvement based on its previous test of 0.0018. That was the lowest point in which it was recently. Tested that level 2 or 3 times. All right, so that's kind of where we're at there for the one day. Let's go ahead and move on here and take a look. So as we can see right now, we've got both moving averages on the 4-hour chart working as support levels. That's good news. That means BTT could continue to progress upwards depending on how the time frames do close. Keep in mind the 4-hour chart is a very common chart for the industry leaders to be utilizing, and the whales essentially because it just works very well for the simple moving averages, which is why we use these here, because they're very important, and they're working right now presently as a support level. They're no longer resistance. In fact, what I mentioned earlier, when you see a resistance level broken significantly, very hard, very fast, it's usually because of those even numbers. You can see right here that the actual price was broken very fast within that 4-hour time frame. Of course, that's because Bitcoin took off, but furthermore, that moving average right there was broken too on Bitcoin as well. If that makes sense, I hope that does. But generally speaking, you'll see most moving averages like the 200, for example, get broken hard and fast because that's where major points are of either short squeezes or long squeezes. Furthermore, we've got the MACD swinging downwards right now, so that is not necessarily a good consideration for a buy signal. But of course, if you're interested in buying the dip, now would be the time. But I never recommend buying the dip, so I'd wait. And that's just kind of where we're at right now. RSI overextended, and then now it's back under, so it kind of corrected itself, so to speak. So my guess is it's going to go sideways for some time and then possibly try again, depending on, again, how Bitcoin performs. Because right now, it looks like BitTorrent is kind of a exponential mover away from Bitcoin. In other words, when Bitcoin does poorly, it does very poor. But when Bitcoin does well, BitTorrent does okay, if that makes sense. So it's like, it's like ×2 on the downward scale, but only half, or 0.5 on the upward scale. Again, that's what a lot of altcoins do. Unfortunately, the altcoins that don't have strong fundamentals. Not to say BTT doesn't. I love the fundamentals of BTT. It's just that it has a large market cap because of its following, but that there's a lot more to be said there. I'm not doing any justice here by any means. This is a technical analysis only, but BTT it doesn't quite have the same fundamentals as the Matic or ADAs, things that are actually a little bit more, I guess, impactful in the real world versus I guess the back end. I don't know how to describe it. Disregard. I ramble sometimes. I apologize. Simply put, BTT is awesome. I love BitTorrent, but it serves its purpose, right? And you'll notice that here with the price action, because it was very violent here. I mean, back in April, it was going crazy. Then it kind of had some trouble, and of course, once the China candle occurred, the price went way down. In fact, let's go ahead and take a quick look at that here. I forgot to look at that earlier. So let's just take a quick peek at April 17th. That was the first major sell-off from Bitcoin right here. You see that BitTorrent ramped up that day and then sold off. That's pretty common. And then down here on the 22nd is the second major Bitcoin sell-off. And then on the 25th, when most other coins did very, very well and they ramped up here, BTT still went sideways. That's that 200% opposite direction I was referring to earlier, whereas it just sell-off city here. So my guess is the fact that it went up so quickly, so fast, it had to retrace back down, and that was a good excuse because the rest of the market was doing poorly. So BTT just continued to get hammered down, so to speak. But on the bright side, right now, the price action does appear to be stabilizing. So anything over 0.002 is a good buy because there's a very strong support level right here at 0.002. So just keep that in mind. That's the current support level. Don't think we're going to see anything come. The price shouldn't come below that, especially with the SMA being much higher. All right, so let's take a look at the 1 hour chart next. And I always disable the SMAs on the 1 hour chart. It seems less impactful. That's why I don't use them. But I do like to utilize the Ishimoku cloud. So in retrospect, if you're new to the channel, the Ishimoku cloud, when the price is above the cloud, obviously that's the red and green clouds here. It's considered a buy signal. So this would have been a buy signal. Okay, see how it bounced off here as a support, and here's a support as well. That's essentially how the cloud works. Same thing happens here. The inverse applies as well. When it breaks down below the cloud, it's considered a short signal, and you would have wanted to short that position right there. All right, so that's kind of the general consensus on how that works. Moving on to the 15-minute chart, we're looking at what? We want to look at two things, first of all, EMA and VWAP. So if you are, again, new to the channel, I utilize the EMA line and the VWAP. The VWAP is the volume weighted average price. It takes the volume in the last 24 hours, expresses it as a price. So it's going to be a little flawed here because of this extreme increase. And then, of course, right here at 5 p.m. Pacific, roughly 25 minutes ago, it had reset. So you're going to see it kind of recorrect itself. It has to reset every 24 hours because the standard deviation lines get too extreme. Unless you take an average of that, which is less beneficial, it just resets every 24 hours. It's more so a traditional trading indicator, but it still works very well as a support and resistance level. So we see here, price above, considered support, price below, it's considered a resistance. That's the general idea. But if you can see here, I have this marked right here. You see these 3 upwards candles, these yellow candles. I have this available on my premium Patreon account there through my signal group. And this is basically just an indication that tells you when the price receives confirmation, good confirmation. In other words, when the price is above VWAP, you got check number 1. All right, price is over support. When the price is over the EMA, which is this red line here, it's also another confirmation. But on top of that, it's also the fact that there's 30 minutes of confirmation in the same direction, right? So right here, if you see, bulls are in control for quite some time here, but the notification tells you specifically when they become in control because of the fact that there are 2 indications in order, right? So just keep that in mind. It basically tells us that there's 30 minutes of confirmation in the same direction the bulls are heading. So that's that momentum that you're looking for. That's what we want to have. So just bear that in mind when you're trying to take entry. Always consider taking entry on the 15-minute chart or less, and ensure that the price is above EMA and VWAP. Just really, really solid, consistent indicators. Obviously, you want to be mindful of the fact that you see these purple ones here. That means the price is over RSI. When it's over RSI on the 15-minute chart, you might want to consider selling when the price comes back down, not when it comes up. So if you'd done that, just say it's sold right here, you would have got a pretty small position. However, when you wait for the RSI to come back down, you would have sold roughly around here, and that would have been a difference. Again, ballpark figure of about 4 to 5%. So you would have 4 to 5% larger gain had you waited for the RSI to come back down. So I get that question a lot. Like, it's like, okay, great, good entry point, but where do I exit? Well, it really depends on your overall position, right? If you're holding or hodling, from 25 cents to $1, then of course you want to hold on and don't do nothing. But if you're considering just buying and selling in the same trading day or within a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks, utilize this mentality. The next time the RSI peaks up over 70, pay attention, and when it starts retracing back down, that's a case in point where you might want to consider trimming or exiting your position. All right, so at this point in time, my prediction, and let's go ahead and take a look at this here. First of all, on the 1 day chart, it's obvious that BitTorrent rose too high too fast, right? You flew too close to the sun. The wings got burned. It had to come crashing back down, right? Now, it doesn't mean that it doesn't still have potential to get back up here between 0.005 and 0.007. It does have potential. Okay, 1 cent I feel is unlikely unless we see another very, very strong bull run from Bitcoin. Okay, because keep in mind, back here in April, Bitcoin was upwards of 50, 60,000. Granted, we're at 40,000 now and we're still down here. That's because everything is so damaged. People are not really willing to invest and pump things up because they're not quite sure where it's at. Even right now, I'm still not confident that Bitcoin is in its bull run, right? I feel like the bears are going to take control and it's just going to come crashing down. Again, that's just my general thought. It's not to say that's the exact case, but my thing here is that with the average true range of BTT being somewhere between, just say, I don't know, 0.008 and 0.005, just as a rough estimate, before the Bitcoin sell-offs, I would venture to guess that BTT has strong potential in the next couple of months to get back up to at least 0.005. It should double in its price within the next 2 months. That'd be my prediction here. What it's going to do in the next 24 hours, it's hard to say. I would say it'll continue upwards if Bitcoin does. So pay attention to what Bitcoin's doing. That'll basically be the catalyst. But it looks like Bitcoin probably bouncing off. Yep, looks like Bitcoin did bounce off of the support level of 37,000. So there's that at least. So if Bitcoin progresses upwards and passes 40,500, I would expect BTT to take off. That's my guess, my sentiment here. So I hope you did find benefit. Please like and subscribe. Please feel free to reference my Patreon account as well. I do have a premium Patreon account for my signal group where I provide a few signals per week to make sure that we all stay in the know. Thankfully, I'm still at a 70-75% ratio. This week was tougher than most, unfortunately. Got stopped out a few times, but that's just kind of how it is. I mean, I feel like a success rate over 60% is pretty good. You just got to minimize your loss and maximize your gains. Either way, we covered that together in that group. So I hope you had a good rest of your day and appreciate you joining me here today. We'll talk to you in the next one. You take care.